Hey, good morning, everybody. It's good for you to be with us this morning because we got a very exciting guest and, as always, I think a very exciting topic. So welcome to Community Connect. I'm Robert Day, CEO of Patrick Henry Family Services, and my co-host is the infamous Claudia Fletcher, also known as Mama C.
Good morning, Robert J. Day.
Good morning. So, what you been up to?
This podcast is not about me.
It's not.
And so if you ask me that question, I could take the whole 30 minutes, and we don't need that.
So there you go. We have it recorded live. It's live and recorded that Claudia Fletcher said this is not about her.
Just this 30 minutes.
This is the
rest of the world kind of
The rest of the world is.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, Mrs. C, what's your favorite thing about Vision 30?
So I think we live in a dichotomized world, a polarized world, and it's getting worse by the day. We have so many different ways that we can land politically, doctrinally, and we like to talk about that way too much. And my favorite thing about Vision 30 is that diversity of opinion is embraced by us. We believe that as long as we can agree on the same thing, which is that kids deserve to be in a safe family, right? Surrounded by a faithful community. If we can all believe that, then we can let the rest of that stuff go. And so I think people are going to see lots of different kinds of people on our show, and they're going to see that they don't all agree with each other, and it's okay. And I've had conversations with people that are Vision 30 partners where I say, you don't have to agree with how everybody else does things. You don't have to agree with all the things that they believe, as long as you agree with the vision that we're going to make this happen together. We can leave our differences at the door. And so seeing all that happen, and particularly when I can see Care Portal with lots of churches that believe lots of different things working together to serve one family, it's like a leveler. And I love that.
Wouldn't it be something of not only would Vision 30 be accomplished in terms of our metrics and our goals, right? But wouldn't it be something of the side benefit of that is that there be greater unity in the community based on common goals, and give people the freedom to disagree or believe whatever they want to believe in their life and in their churches and in their business. But when it comes to taking care of kids, we agree that's very, very important.
That would be an unintended positive consequence.
It certainly
that
would.
Be cool.
Yeah. So this morning we have Allison Jordan with us, who actually she's with Iron Lives, and we're going to talk about that more in just a little bit. But Allison, you have a long history, and your family has a long history of Patrick Henry back when it was a boys and girls home. Tell us that connection.
I was telling Robert and Mama C this morning that I was born into the Patrick Henry family. I didn't know any different. I didn't know any better. My grandfather was a really strong supporter of the girls program in Rustburg. And when I was little, he had a horse farm. He was really into how horses and taking care of animals really was therapeutic, cathartic, and he wanted the girls to have a horse program for all the reasons that you would want someone to learn responsibility.
Yeah.
You would want them to understand how important it is to care for the animals. So he made it his mission to build them a barn and build a program. They used to come over to his horse barn, but he wanted them to have one in their backyard. So when I was little, my grandfather and my dad ran the ice business in Lynchburg, Jennings Ice, and then they ran Jennings Convenience on the old 460. So if you didn't live in Lynchburg at the time, 460 used to come a lot closer to the Lower Basin or the Concord Turnpike, and there was a convenience store there, and they sold beverages, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and there was like a snack bar there. He saved the tin cans from that lunch counter snack bar and would cash them in and take the money for years, and I'm sure his personal money went into it as well. I don't think it all came from tin cans, but built a horse barn and a horse program, and there was a horse show there every year or maybe every 6 months in his honor, in his name. So I grew up with the girls from Patrick Henry. I didn't know why they were there. I didn't know anything about their family stories. I just knew that we loved them and they were a part of the Jennings family. I even have one of my favorite things in my house is a framed picture of my grandfather with Clayton Riggs, and it says the Tin Man has a heart, because he had a heart for the girls, and he had a heart. My grandfather was an orphan. His mother died after his youngest sister was born, and he lived at the Presbyterian home, which is now many iterations later. So he definitely had a heart for children that didn't have families or traditional families. So I went on to become a teacher at Rustburg High School, and I taught many of the girls who were in the program, and I loved them. And I still keep up with a lot of them.
Wonderful.
And then I went to William Campbell to be an administrator. So William Campbell is an amazing school in Naruna, Virginia. Well, at the time, the boys came to William Campbell that lived on the Brookneal campus, and I got to know a lot of the staff members and worked on a daily basis. I would visit the campus, so I got to know that part of Patrick Henry, and then I came to, was it the first gala? Was that your debut?
In 2018, that was our first gala, yes.
So I came to your fancy party, and it was amazing. And one of the things that I love about Patrick Henry is how the organization has evolved over time. I grew up knowing the group home, and in 2018, you all announced how you were going to transition away from the group home setting. I think when you know better, you do better, and you talked about how children need to be in a family setting. Children need to be in a household with a traditional family setting as much as possible. So I have been a supporter forever, and I love to watch the evolution. I love to watch the different iterations of Patrick Henry. And now, as the executive director of a nonprofit in town, I absolutely love the idea of Vision 30. I love the gathering. We don't all have to agree with each other, like Mama C said.
Okay, the Mama C thing.
Oh, come on now.
All right.
Thanks, Mama C. Well, first of all, let me, on behalf of Patrick Henry Family Services, let me say thank you to you and to your family. And if any of your families out there watching, thank you for all those years of support. But also thank you for transitioning with us, right? And not saying, okay, well, they've walked away from what they were doing, and you're still with us, and we appreciate that. And that you're now, as head of a nonprofit, part of the Vision 30 team. So yeah, you've been a part of this for a long, long time, and helping us take it to the next level. So that's pretty exciting. So tell us a little bit about why education, right? You chose that. So you've been involved in helping children for a long time. But just tell us a little bit about that, and then how you transitioned from that into the leadership role of Iron Lives.
Whew, how much time do you have?
Right now we have about 20 minutes.
say that education chose me.
Okay.
I was not going to be a teacher. I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to do something in sales. Education chose me, like it does everyone in my entire family. So it's a joke. I couldn't stay away from it. I couldn't stay away from working with kids. I couldn't stay away from academia. And I tell people the longer I taught, I didn't love my content as much as I loved kids. I would go back and teach anything. That's how much I love middle schoolers and high schoolers. And people think I'm crazy. I love middle schoolers. And ninth graders are my favorite age because they're still middle schoolers, but they're in a high school environment. So I just love adolescents. And I would always fight to teach that
It's such a
age.
critical time to have some positive influence in their life as they're transitioning, right?
Absolutely.
Those early years.
And when I was in my early 20s, I realized I was the most adult figure in some of their lives, and that was terrifying to me. I was trying to keep plants alive and figure out how to be an adult myself, and I was the most adulting adult in some of their lives. So I realized the responsibility almost immediately. I've always been an advocate of public schools. I understand why people choose private, but I think public schools are so incredibly important, and I go back to the least of those, that we need to make sure that the
public schools,
least
yeah.
of those have access to great educators, great mentors, positive influences, and the school has become the place where students get food, they get air conditioning or heat, they get a safe environment, supervision, all of the things that we can talk about the research. You're not going to bloom until you have all the things in Maslow. So I really, really believe in the importance of education. I transitioned to a nonprofit. You could call it a midlife crisis. I was 40. I was doing a lot of soul searching. I like to call it a midlife reset. That sounds a little bit better. I want to see how community organizations like Vision 30, like nonprofits who are really serious about coming to the table, not for their own agenda, but coming to the table for the agenda of the community or the kingdom, however you want to look at it. But I believe in kids, and I believe in families, and I believe in this community, and I am willing to set aside some of my personal agendas or some of my, my baggage to do that work. And I am so excited about the collective impact. And having worked in K-12 forever, there's a sense of bureaucracy there where, in a lot of ways, I tell people that school finance moves slower than the speed of smell. You oftentimes have to be thinking 8, 9, 10 months ahead of time about what your needs are going to be to anticipate that. But if Vision 30 partners and Care Portal and all of the things can meet the urgent needs.
Yes, there you go.
If somebody needs something within the hour, Vision 30 partners can meet it. But when you're working in a system, and I'm not saying anything negative about it, it needs to be that way when you're talking about grant funds and operating budgets. But I think that we can be so powerful if we wrap our arms around government organizations as community partners. Is that a good answer?
That's a great answer. And I've done a lot of research on the orphan movement, orphan care, and how foster care got started. We often forget that the public schools is an end result of a movement to make sure that there was free education for kids. And in terms of a societal impact, right? Getting every child the opportunity to have an education has lifted up the entire country. So it is key. And for all the reasons you just said, Vision 30's got to think about how we make the public schools, help the public schools be more successful and more impactful. And so I'm going to take just a moment right now. We're going to take a little break. We're going to show a video on Stand Sunday, which will tie all of this together. And then we're going to come back and talk about Iron Lives and how your mission in the schools, right, not only will help that cause, but help the larger cause of Vision 30. Okay, so guys, let's watch our Stand Sunday commercial right now.
There are 30,000 children that are in the foster care system today in the state of Texas. There are 500,000 children that are in the U.S. that's in the foster care system. And I said, who would stand with me today for these kids? That day, Nedra Wade, she stood and raised her hand and she said, Pastor, I will. And then another person stood and said, I will. And another stood and said, I will. And another stood and said, I will. Well, after the process started in our church, and family after family, within 3 months, 39 children were placed in families in our church.
Jesus, Jesus.
What if there was more families waiting for children than children waiting for families? So we called Child Protective Services. And they said, if that happens in any county, that will be the first ever.
Precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more.
Pretty powerful commercial. It's a wonderful story of a vision that was fulfilled, in 6 years they
Yep.
made that happen. And they've been able to maintain it.
Right, and it's still going on, and so it comes up in November every year, and Vision 30, and part of what we're doing with our Connect team at Patrick Henry is to pull churches in to do that. It's a national movement, and you can call it Orphan Sunday or Stand Sunday, either one, and it can focus on international orphan care, or it can focus on the foster care system. So if you want more information, you can contact us, and there's a national map that shows every church that's going to do it, and I think last year the whole state of Virginia may have had 6 or 8 churches, and this year we want to see that
Yes.
just multiply so that people can see that this is an area that cares about that issue.
Wonderful. Well, we're visiting with Allison Jordan with Iron Lives, and we've heard her story of connection to Patrick Henry Family Services and her love for children and education. And now that's kind of all combined into this nonprofit called Iron Lives. So tell us, what is Iron Lives? What do they do, right? And your role in that.
Iron Lives was founded in 2009. Dr. Derek Brown was a biology teacher at Amherst County High School, and he saw the need for students to have an extra layer of character development, an extra layer of opportunities. And I want everyone to understand that Iron Lives is not a program for those kids. It's a program for all kids. And now that I'm a mother of a 12-year-old, I get that more than you could ever know. Students, youth who have traditional family settings, students who look like they have it all on the outside, that don't have any of the negative indicators. Remember the gathering when you did the check sheet to see if we had indicators that we were at risk. Even students who don't check any of the boxes for those negative indicators in their families need a program like Iron Lives. They need an extra layer of adults who are there for them, who care for them, character development, opportunities. So Iron Lives stands for I am responsible for overcoming negativity. So we try to infuse as many positive opportunities for our youth, for our communities. We have 14 years of research. We operate from the 5 C's of character development. So we infuse care, competencies, confidence, connection. I'm going to leave one out. Did I say confidence? And that leads to a 6C of contribution, because we want adolescents to be contributing to either their school community. If you think about concentric circles, your family, your classroom, your school community, your greater community, your church, that kids don't have to be just the future, they're the right now. And I love when Dr. Brown talks about that in the history of our lives. The kids are the right now. So over the years, the program has evolved, much like Patrick Henry Family Services has evolved over the years, because negative influences have evolved.
Sure.
Think about social media. Think about just as technology changes, what kind of negative influences our students face. So we try to explicitly teach in a build, support, send model. We build students up with competencies, using mentors who are around for at least a calendar year. That's a really important part of the research, that there needs to be a trusting adult figure, trusting mentor that's around for an extended period of time. And that really hurts when you think about, how do you use interns? How do you use volunteers? How do you, really, you need to have an adult who is there for at least a year to impact students and build them up. And in the support phase, Iron Lives lets students practice whatever the competencies are. Maybe we're teaching you about empathy. Think about that, teaching an adolescent about empathy. Maybe we're teaching you about empathy. Bring in a guest speaker to talk about why that's important. But then in the next phase of our programming, we let you try it in a safe place. So what does it mean to show empathy? What does it mean to articulate? What does it mean to network? You do that in a safe space with this mentor that you have grown to know, with this peer group that's like your accountability peer group, but it's safe. Then in the send phase, and this is oftentimes what K-12 educators don't do, and it was terrifying to me and my friends that know about a middle school summer school project, is field trips are terrifying to a lot of us because we so want to keep students safe. But that phase of sending them out in the community to do the work, to do the real work where it's relevant and it's realistic. Iron Lives goes with them into community settings to practice empathy. One thing we've talked about is the difference between seniors and youth and their technology use. So a way to show empathy is to help some of our older population figure out how to use their cell phones or how to use a certain app. And we've let students practice some of these skills in community settings or safe settings. When you think about things like networking or even etiquette, you have to learn that in a safe setting with somebody that you know, but then you really have to go out and do it at a luncheon, at an event, at a gala. So the 5 C's leading to that 6C of contribution in that build, support, send model is really the way that we've seen the outcomes over the years. And we now have more than 2,500 alumni in the program, and it is fascinating to hear their stories as they reach out. Someone said to me the other day, "You say you change lives. Don't you think that word is a little strong?" And I said, well, maybe impact would be safer, but if you ask alumni, some of them would even say save lives.
Save lives.
And when you think of the metaphor of the river, when you think of what Vision 30 is doing, sometimes we don't know the kids we saved. Sometimes you don't know the kids that you've changed or you've impacted. I know the ones I didn't. I grieve over the ones that I don't think I changed or I don't think I saved. But it's amazing when alumni come back and say, Iron Lives changed my life. Iron Lives maybe even saved my life. And a lot of times the adult in the situation didn't even know the child needed it. We didn't even know the negative influences. And Iron Lives is rooted in Amherst County because that's where it was founded. And many people, many parents ask for the program. We even have judges that say, is that still around? You know, I think I know a student who may need this. And it's really neat now, 14 years down the road, to experience that.
That's what 2,500. That's a lot. I haven't heard you use the word mentorship, but that's what it reminds me of. But also reminds me of a good church word, discipleship. And almost that model, right? Where you said and you learn, and then you go out with them, and then you send them out. Yeah, and they do that in the military, right? I'm going to show you how to do it. All right, I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then you're going to go do it while I watch.
Absolutely.
So it's a pretty solid model that you guys have there. Any of those 2,500 coming back and now participating as mentors and the guides in all of this?
I love that you asked that question. Olivia Raj is our programs director. Olivia was one of the first females to get involved in the program, and Olivia went through the program at Amherst County High School, then came back to mentor young ladies throughout her young adulthood, and now she is a staff member with
That's
Iron
beautiful.
Lives. Claudio Otero was one of the original males in the program, and Claudio has been involved throughout as a student, as a college student. He is now our site director at Amherst County High School, and it is fascinating to see the first generation of Iron Lives now impacting the next generation. And it's fascinating to hear both of their stories, which, you know, oftentimes they call their testimonies, about how the organization has been a safety net. And Dr. Brown uses the term social immune system, and I love that, because even after you graduate, there's this network of people who are going to be references for your jobs. They're going to be there to mentor you either personally or professionally. And it's amazing. We have an alumni who reaches out from Nashville, and he says, I can't be there, but I can tune in virtually. If you need me, you know, let me know.
Now, you're in how many schools in the Lynchburg and surrounding counties right now?
That is, and growing. So
And
it
growing,
changes.
yes.
It changes daily.
I was looking at your website
Yes.
last night, and I think you're in just about every one, middle and high school, right?
We are now piloting a program with Amherst County Elementary Schools, and we're
Okay.
really excited
Beautiful.
about that. We are joining with Amherst County Public Schools, Amherst Education Foundation, and Iron Lives to support a movement, Show Up Amherst. Our hashtag for the year for Iron Lives is hashtag Show Up. When you think about the first step to success, the first step to employment, the first step to attending school, show up. And we are pledging to show up for kids as well. Wow. So every stakeholder needs to show up for kids in our community. The kids have to show up as well. The parents have to show up. And what does showing up look like after COVID-19? So that's a new pilot project that we're doing in Amherst. So we're really in every school in Amherst County. In Lynchburg, we are in all 3 middle schools with hopes of getting into high schools and alternative schools there. We're working with a number of community partners in Lynchburg as well. So it's okay if there's a program in the school and a program at the community center. Extra layers of people who care about kids. That's amazing. We are also at Jefferson Forest High School in Bedford County. And we've got some prospective schools. So I hope that number continues to grow.
Yeah. I'd love to see it in the Campbell County schools where you were at.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. So we only have about 2 minutes left. So give us how can people contact you, right? Give them the website, the phone number, all that kind of stuff right now, would you?
That is great. We are www.ironlives.com. Our phone number, you're putting me on the spot
I
here.
couldn't probably give my phone number to the Patrick Henry either because I never called it, right? So
866-358-IRON.
Well, there you go.
And if that's not right, go look on our website, but I'm pretty sure it is. We operate mostly in K-12 and in community organizations. So when people say, how can we volunteer? I oftentimes want to know your heart. I want to know your story. And then we will give our K-12 programming and our community partners options for guest speakers. So if public speaking is not your thing, then you may not want to volunteer like that. We often take volunteers for events that we are doing, donations. Right now we are trying to fund supply tubs for all of our sites, because we definitely do not want any of our teachers in our K-12 programs having to spend money out of their pockets. We want them to have supplies on hand to positively impact these students. So there are many ways that you can get involved. And another way is just tell our story and understand that Iron Lives really likes to come to the table and talk. Just as Claudia said in the beginning, we don't necessarily have to agree on everything, but if we can agree on helping kids, invite us to the table. We'd love to talk and brainstorm.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Allison.
you.
Wow, what a story. Any way that you'd like to wrap this up? Any conclusions as you sit here and listen to Allison and that amazing story?
The only thing that I can think of is probably not perfect, but when you were talking about empathy, I have a granddaughter who's 12. That's crazy. But the most perfect definition of 7th grade, and this came to my mind when you were talking about empathy, is that she was, we had dinner together and she was at the table with her family and ours, and she said, people have just been hurting my feelings a lot lately. And I said, I was trying to relate, and I said, people hurt my feelings sometimes too. And she said, I don't have time to focus on anyone's feelings but my own right now, Grandma. And I thought, if that's not 7th grade, right? But what a need for empathy to pull those kids in and teach them that, yes, you're self-absorbed because you're 12, right? But there's this world out there, and you need to have that skill. And if we don't reach them then when they're in that moment, we might lose it. So I love what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Great way to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us today on Community Connection. We've been speaking with Allison Jordan at Iron Lives. Check them out at ironlives.com and get involved. If you got the time, if you don't have the time, then support them financially. They're doing incredible work, an important work. So we'll see you next week on Community Connection. Thank you very much.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.